Today's recipe calls for chicken breast. I'm going to show you how to make juicy oven baked chicken. So with that said, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is make our spice mix for our chicken. So you're going to grab a small holding apparatus and you're going to add 1 teaspoon of onion powder and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. You can get as crazy as you want with your chicken seasoning. You can throw in some chili powder or some cumin or some curry powder. It's really up to you on how crazy you want to get. We're also going to season our chicken breast with some kosher salt and fresh cracked black pepper. You'll notice that your chicken breasts are thick on one end and they taper out to be thinner on the opposite end. We need to pound those out so everything's the exact thickness. This way we get a nice even bake on our chicken breast. You can use a flattening device of your choice like a rolling pin or a small saucepan with a flat bottom or a small saute pan or a meat mallet. Once you have your device chosen, you're going to preheat your oven to 450 Fahrenheit or 230 Celsius. Now it's time to give our chicken breast the old whack job. It's really important that you cover them up when you go to flatten them out. You can either use saran wrap for this or use a reusable zip top bag like this. It's important to do this because when you start pounding them out, all those chicken juices are going to go all over the place and we don't want to spread bacteria. And of course, after you touch raw chicken, it's really important to wash your ball catchers. This way you're not going to spread bacteria this way either. You don't want to get too crazy when you're pounding out your chicken. You want to focus on the thick side and pound it out just enough until your entire chicken breast is the same thickness all the way across. This is a light to medium force. You don't want to get too crazy with it because if you thin it out too much, then it'll dry out in the oven. And a little pro tip for you as well, rotate your chicken breast in your zip top bag like this. This way it's nice and even all the way across and you get more of a flat chicken instead of a flat center and bulging sides. I ended up using a 3-pack of chicken breasts for this recipe. You can use as much or as little as you wish. The same rules apply as far as flattening out your chicken. And when you're buying your chicken, you want to do your best to ensure all of your chicken breasts are roughly the same size. This way it'll be a whole lot easier to bake off later. And if they're not, it's not that big of a deal. You might just have to cook one big one a little bit longer than the smaller ones. In the end, this is what they should look like. Something nice and evenly flattened all the way across, but still has a little bit of thickness, so we end up with a nice, juicy, and tender piece. Next, you're going to grab a half sheet tray or a baking dish and line it with some parchment paper. This will make it a whole lot easier to clean later on. After that, you're going to grab some olive oil. And you're going to drizzle about 1/8 teaspoon or enough to coat all of your chicken breast in. The olive oil will allow the seasonings to stick, and it'll also help give us some golden brown color while they bake. Then give everything a quick toss to ensure it's coated in our olive oil. Once it is, you're going to start to line out your half sheet tray. And you want to leave about 2 to 3 inches between each chicken breast. You don't want to overcrowd your pan. This way we ensure that we get a nice even bake on everything. Before we pop them in the oven, we need to season them with that seasoning that we worked so hard on, that's super top secret. And you want to give your chicken breast a good salting. It's really important to season it really well with the salt. This will add a ton of flavor and bring out a lot of the natural flavors as well. And give it a few cranks of your fresh cracked black pepper. And when you're seasoning with your granulated garlic and onion powder, it's important that you get as much of that powder on your chicken as possible, because if you don't, that stuff will burn and turn black on your parchment paper. It's not that big of a deal, but you just don't want that on your chicken before you go to eat it. And with that powder, you kind of want to dust it on there. It's not something that you can rub in between your fingers, because if you do, it just gets all clumpy and weird. Also, a little pro tip for you, you don't want to use a fork to stab your chicken breast to flip them over or to get them out of the bag. Stabbing your chicken will leave those holes, which will allow all those juices to flow out, which in turn will leave us with a dry end product. Now that we've made it rain seasonings, we're going to throw it in our preheated oven on the middle rack for the best results. Now that our chicken is in the oven, we're going to let this first side bake for 6 minutes. After that timer goes off, we're going to give our chicken breast the old flippy floppy and cook it for an additional 6 minutes. You can totally skip the flipping part, but I think it gives us the best results in the end. It's best to bake your chicken off at this high temperature for a short amount of time, the fast and short method. This way it retains all of its moisture, so we get something that's nice and juicy and tender. We're going to bake these things off for 12 minutes total, or until the internal temp of our chicken breast hits 155 Fahrenheit or 68 degrees Celsius. You can give it the old push test to see if they're done, but for the best results, use an instant instant read thermometer. And when you're using an instant read thermometer, it's really important to put it in the thickest part of your chicken, right in the center. You don't want to go too high or too low. If it's too low, it's going to be too close to the pan, which will throw off your temp. And if you go too high, it'll be too close to the top of our chicken, which will also throw off our temp. You may need to bake your chicken longer than 12 minutes. It just depends on how hot your oven runs. Mine tends to run really hot, so things bake really fast. And if you're not sure, pull it out at the 12 minutes and temp it to see where it's at. If it needs to go longer, throw it back in and bake it some more until it hits that 155. Now that they're done baking, we're going to let them rest for about 6 to 7 minutes, which will allow them to reabsorb all of its juices so we get the best end product. And it'll also carry over cook a few degrees as well. Now that they're done resting, you're going to grab the biggest knife possible and cut it in half. So in the end, it should look something like this, nice and juicy and that white opaque color. If it looks like this, then you know they're done. You can use these chicken for pretty much anything. Whatever you decide to do, just enjoy.
Alright, now that our chicken breast is done, let's give it the old tasteroo. So looking at it, it came out looking really tasty. On the edges and the corner of some of the chicken breast, we got a little slight caramelization on it. If you want something that's darker in color and has more caramelization, play around with the spices to get a different look and flavor, of course. Then when we cut into it and you press on it a little bit, it bounces back, which means it's super tender. And when you squeeze on it, a ton of juices come out, which is awesome, and that's what we're going for. Let's cut off a piece and try it. Flavor-wise, this stuff came out super tasty. The garlic and onion add a ton of flavor, and it's the best combination for pretty much anything, if you ask me. The salt also helps enhance those flavors, and the fresh cracked black pepper adds a bit of spiciness to it. And texture-wise, it's super tender. You barely have to chew on it, and it falls apart in your mouth. And also, it's super juicy. Overall, these chicken breasts came out perfect. This recipe is super easy. Once you learn how to master juicy chicken, you can play around with the flavors and make it a basil chicken breast or throw some lemon pepper on it. Once you figure that out, you can make some chicken wraps or throw it in a Caesar salad or put it on top of pasta salad or bake a ton off at the beginning of the week and use it as meal prep for the rest of the week. There's endless opportunities. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching. I need to go practice my chicken dance. Alright, enough fooling around for a video. We'll see you on the next one. This is embarrassing. It's my nickname, Juicy. Once you slightly, why do you keep saying slightly? It's my new favorite word, apparently. Once you learn to master this chicken, you can pretty much use these for pretty much anything you want.